Hello everyone, my name is Lydia and I am here to talk to you about writer's block. This is a video I've planned for a long time and I just haven't sat down and recorded it, but here I am. So grab a cup of something to drink and let's talk about writer's block. So some of you might cringe at that term, writer's block. Like, we've all heard of writer's block. Even people who don't write have heard of it. And anyone who's a writer has probably not only heard of writer's block, but has also been told that it doesn't exist. It's an imaginary thing. Writer's block doesn't exist. You just have to write. Don't be lazy. Don't make excuses. Now, I agree with the idea that you shouldn't let writer's block stop you from writing, but to say that it doesn't exist or it's not real, I think we all maybe kind of go like, oh, but we've all felt it. You know, we've all felt writer's block. So how is it not real, and doesn't exist when we've all kind of experienced this thing that we're talking about? Because that seems to be the advice that I get all the time is you just have to keep writing, just plow through it, There's a lot of quotes that are shared that are good quotes in and of themselves, like, the water, I don't know what it is, something about like the water won't come if the faucet's turned off or something. I'm misquoting a really good quote. I'm sorry. But there's all sorts of quotes that kind of say that kind of thing. Like, well, if you want, you have to put in the work. You have to have a first draft. You got to have something to work with. You're shoveling the sand to build a sandcastle. Like, I get it. I understand the sentiment, but I think you kind of have a lot of people who are like, okay, so even though I'm feeling stuck, even though I don't know what to do, even though I feel completely blocked, do I just plow through it? Just keep writing, just plow through it. I think that can get you in a really tough spot. I've done that. I've done that for a whole NaNoWriMo's worth of words where I just gotta keep writing, I just gotta write it out, and it's really kind of come back to bite me. I have written 50,000 words of garbage now that kind of landed me in a confused rut, and it's very disheartening to write 50,000 words on a project and go, I'm going to delete all of these words, every single one of them. And this is after years of retrospect on the project. It's not just a knee-jerk, oh, that's crap, I'm going to delete it. It's like, no, I shouldn't have just plowed through. I shouldn't have just kept going. I wrote in a direction that doesn't work at all because I didn't stop and think and work around this mental block and figure it out. So I think writer's block is real for a particular project. I think it is real for a particular project, and that's when you can talk about writer's block. Why people have a bad taste about writer's block in their mouth, I think, is because it's been used as an excuse to not write. And you can't use writer's block as an excuse to not write anything. If you're a writer, you have to show up, put the time in, and try to keep writing. I agree with that. Maybe not every day. I think people overdo it with everything. It's got to be every day. You got to exercise every day. It's like, maybe try exercising 3 days a week because that's definitely going to be better than nothing. Stepping stones, creating habits, chill with the all or nothing mentalities. But that being said, don't use writer's block as an excuse to not sit down and try to write. I think it exists for a particular project, and there are ways to help unstick yourself. There are ways to motivate yourself. There are ways to become re-inspired. Those ways don't involve not writing. So I'm going to kind of give you some ideas that I've used to help unstick myself in a project, and I haven't written for a while, so I'm not some shining example of writing productivity. Writing is still kind of a hobby job for me. I want to do it for fun. I don't want to hate it. And I've been doing a lot of other things in my life lately, so I haven't been writing as much as I'd like to. But I have conquered and gotten through certain bouts of writer's block before, and I'm going to give you some ideas to kind of cope with this. Like I said, writer's block I think can exist for a particular project. So one of the ways to combat this is work on a different project. project. Have multiple projects to work on. It's the best advice I can give anybody. I know some people are like, oh, I'm never going to finish something if I work on different projects. Well, don't start a million different projects. Just have a couple so that when you're really stuck and you do not know what to write on that project, work on a different one. Work on your other book, write on there for a little while, and your brain is going to be in that problem solving mode. It's going to be in that creating mode. The faucet will be on, and that will help you think of a solution for your other project as well. Another way to unstick yourself is talk to a critique partner and get some advice on your project. A lot of us writers tend to be very private in our works, and we don't want to feel like we're stealing other people's ideas, and sometimes you get opinions from someone, you don't want to use them, and then you're worried about offending them. Get a good critique partner, someone who understands you and your isms and writing in general, and just bounce ideas back and forth off of them. Like, it's good to get advice, and they can tell you right away, hey, yeah, that kind of sucks, and they might help you mend something that you think is going to destroy your story, make it all fall apart. They might be able to find a solution like, no, just change this sentence here and you'll be okay, Critique partners are great for that. Another thing is to just step away from the computer. Like, there's nothing that, kills my brain faster than staring at a blank Word document with, the cursor. Like, oh my gosh, it's almost like a mental scar, if anything wants to give you, anxiety and make you feel like you have writer's block is just staring at that document. So get up, take a break, go for a walk, or take a bath, and don't have your face in your phone, don't have something playing. Just be quiet and be doing something physical, whether you're bathing or taking a walk or walking your dog. I don't even know. Planting some plants, and let your brain wander. Let it think. I read a great book that was called Bored to Brilliant. It talks all about how we tend to distract ourselves all the time. And so our brains don't do the natural, creative, imaginative thinking that they do because we're just distracting ourselves when we're focusing on this. And your brain is great at thinking through problems and problem solving. That's how we write stories in the first place. So give yourself time to do that. And try to think on your story. Be like, well, I'm going to go outside and take a walk and think on my story. And you'll be surprised at what you come up with. Another one is just sitting down with a notebook and brainstorming, writing out potential outlines. So you're not actually writing the words, but, take a pen and paper and go well, if this happens and this happens, and then just kind of compare and contrast, write out a couple different things, write out, remind yourself who your characters are, just kind of play with the words. Sometimes just changing a medium and going away from that, in the moment, how am I going to write this scene, to a little bit more of a big picture planning can help. Sometimes even just going I'm going to write this scene on paper instead of the computer where it's distracting and I got that, blinking cursor brain scar about. Sometimes that can really help to just, change how you're doing it, typing it into your phone when you're outside, pulling out a Bluetooth keyboard and your iPad or something in a different location. That can help. Another thing is not forcing yourself to write linearly. I can't say it. Not forcing yourself to write in the timeline, let yourself jump around. It might have to change. It might be tweaked. You might ultimately delete the scene. But if you are super stuck and you can picture this great scene later in the story, maybe let yourself write that scene. Even if you have to rewrite it. Even if it ends up getting deleted. I think some people probably have gotten bit in the butt by jumping around writing all the fun scenes and not knowing how to connect them. But at the same time, if you can picture a scene so clearly, that's going to be a really exciting thing to write, and it's going to re-inspire you. All that great inspiration is going to re-inspire you to work on the story again. So if it works for you, let yourself jump around a little bit. Just kind of keep a log. And just going back to that, working on a different project, so important. My advice was mostly for the project that you're on to help you unstick yourself in that way. But if you're no, I need to work on a different project, give your brain a break. Sometimes trying to beat your head against that stone wall to get through it just isn't going to happen that day. Take a step back, walk around, find a doorway, like work on a different project. And then all of a sudden you'll be able to see that project more clearly and find another way into that room. Like for me, it's really nice to try a different style of writing, like write a blog post, write a poem, write something nonfiction. You turn to your journal. That's a different medium and a different kind of style of writing. Write a letter to somebody. You could do a flash fiction. You could even, do a fan fiction. Like, it's fun to write in another world. There's a lot less pressure. You're literally like picking up someone else's Barbies to play with as opposed to building your own Barbies before you can play. Like, it is a different, less stressful thing, and it can be very creative and stimulating and very encouraging and fun. There's another thing you can do when you just feel like you can't write that day, but you gotta work on your projects. Be careful with this one, though. You could line edit another work or go back and fix some scenes you know need to be fixed. But be careful with this one, because this is not writing. Editing is very different than writing. It's not writing, and you can get caught in the spiral of just editing and re-editing your work and not actually writing anything. Like starting to build the castle when you just don't have enough sand. Why are you building the castle now? The waves are going to knock it all down when you have to go get some more sand. Like, I'm really just throwing out wild analogies that don't make any sense, but I think that one makes sense. Like, the editing thing is work towards your end goal. But people tell you not to edit at all before you get a first draft, and there's a reason for that. Like, I can't write that way. I have to edit a bit as I go. I can't do the first draft without any edits. It's so awful for me. But don't confuse your editing for writing, because like you need to write the story, and editing the first half of the story 80 times is not actually getting you closer to being done with the story. Like, you need, because that might have to all change by the time you get the last half written. So don't let that trap you. Be very careful with using that to break your writer's block, because usually it just like cements it more in. Maybe if it's like a day, but if you're really stuck on a project, big picture outline work, writing other scenes, talking to somebody about it, or working on a different project, those are the best ways to get through it. So to sum up, I don't agree with writer's block as an excuse to not write anything. I mean, like, we all choose to not write because we're feeling overwhelmed and our brains feel burned out. And that's fine. We don't have to call it writer's block, and we don't also have to be so ashamed of it if we take a writing break. But writer's block should not be used as an excuse not to write, but it can be a real thing within a particular project where you just cannot figure out, because that's what you're doing. You're just making things up in your brain, and sometimes you get a point where you can't figure out what to do next with that project, or you can't figure out how to fix a problem with that project. I literally has been working on a project, and it took me like 2 years to have a really simple epiphany of what I should do with the world building of that project. And like, I struggled to think of that epiphany forever, and I couldn't come up with anything at all. And then it just came to me. It just came to me when I wasn't even thinking about it. And so those kind of things do happen. And so that's why I'm very careful to not just promote the like, well, you just gotta be working and plow through it. Like, yeah, sure, you gotta put in the work to, work towards your goals, but you can't always just plow through it, because you'll get 50,000 words of plowing that you have to just delete afterwards, and that's not the best use of your time. Work smarter, not harder. These are all things we got to consider. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys feel about writer's block? Have you felt it? Have you used it as an excuse when you shouldn't have? Do you think there's something wrong with the advice to just write as much as possible all the time? How do you proceed when you get stuck in a project? Sound off in the comments. I would really like to hear what you have to say, because this is something I struggle with too. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye!